Thanks, Abdullah, and it's lovely to be here, everyone. I am suffering a little from sinusitis, like I think most of South Africa, so excuse me if my voice is a bit gruffly and at times it may disappear. I think I'll manage to hold up though over the course of the next hour or so. So I'm going to share a screen in a second and talk you through a bit of the Yoco story and particularly how we built the brand. Before I do that, I mean, my journey at Yoco started 5 years ago, back in 2017. I'm not one of the founders, but I was one of the first employees, and I started the brand team at Yoco after spending a year in strategy. And I ran the brand team for almost 4 years until last year, where I was promoted to a broader commercial role where I look over all the marketing and sales functions, a team of about 70 people. But I'm going to mainly talk about my job as head of brand and how we built the brand from when I joined a very small brand, which about 1 out of every 10 South African business owners were even aware of, to currently 8 out of every 10 small business owners in South Africa are aware of Yoco and the brand over the course of the last 3 years. So let me get into the content, and looking forward to hopefully lots of questions and good engagement. Cool. Abdullah mentioned how hopefully most people on this call have had an interaction with Yoco, either paying to one of our little blue card machines or maybe with an online payment. But I thought it would make sense to start off with just a few minutes of how this business was built and where it started. So really our story starts back in 2015. These 4 guys, 4 friends who came from various telecoms backgrounds and consulting backgrounds, really saw an amazing opportunity. And it all started when Katlego, our CEO, was in a little hole-in-the-wall diner in New York City back in about 2013. And, you know, it was a real, like, rough and ready place. And when it came to pay for his burger, he was absolutely shocked that the proprietor, the owner, basically handed him their cell phone with a little square dongle on the back and said, "You want to pay with a credit card?" Katlego just thought, well, it was impossible that a place like this would have anything besides cash. It just seemed like a cash-only environment. And he remembered that little square dongle, and back in South Africa, started asking a lot of questions like, well, why actually is the small business sector in South Africa so wildly underserved with regards to financial services and the absolute basics of being able to accept payments through any device, anything that your customer wants to pay with? I mean, very cash-only environment unless you were a big business in South Africa. So really, that was the genesis of the company, and the four guys got together and started trying to solve this problem. And it's been a hell of a journey, really. Back from when that very first transaction was made, back in 2015, when the first transaction was done in October 2015. The business is built to now servicing almost 280,000 customers across South Africa, and growing at, you know, almost doubling every single year over the past 3 years, and processing tens of billions of rands every year through our various payments devices, both in person and online. We are a venture capital funded company. Actually one of the few growth startups that are venture capital funded in South Africa in many respects. And we continue to grow at the kind of rates that are attracting, you know, amazing fundraising from around the world. But most importantly, we have fundamentally shifted the problem of small businesses in South Africa being able to do something as simple as accept payments from their customers in non-cash terms, digital wallets. So in Africa, there's 100 million small businesses across Africa and the Middle East. They are difficult to reach. They are difficult to serve in many respects. They are historically the underserved, the underdogs, and these are why we exist. And the fascinating thing about a country like South Africa, which is quite unique on the African continent, is that 80% of people have a card in their wallet, either a debit or a credit card. Yet when Yoco started 5 years ago, or really 7 years ago now, only 8% of businesses could accept card payments. That number is changing every day, but it still remains a very untapped market. It's a market that was really seen not worth the effort by the big banks in South Africa because of the difficulty of reaching small business owners, onboarding them, doing the KYC, doing the FICA, etc., to allow them to be able to accept card payments and really have a digital footprint for the first time. The payments opportunity is massive across the African continent. Our focus remains, as yet, still purely in the South Africa. Our products, which is where everything starts, are a combination of offline and online payments. Our most famous and popular products are our little blue card machines. We also offer the ability to be able to send something as simple as a payment link for chat commerce, to plug in Yoco into your existing website, whether it's through Shopify or WooCommerce, etc. We also offer capital. So based on the fact that we can see how your business is doing and the revenue that's coming through our devices and our payment links and our online payment gateways, we can therefore pre-approve you for capital, which is basically working capital, which you can pay off by us holding back a portion of card swipes that go through your device. And we offer a suite of free business tools. So portals where you can really understand your business, look at your sales history, how you compared to the previous month, etc. A POS, which can sit on your iPad or your phone, which you can load your products onto, add your staff, add your tips, and really run your business, which is all provided for free if you sign up for one of our payments devices. The story today is about how we built the brand. And I'm going to be quite specific that these are 6 lessons. They're personal lessons for me, really, as my role as head of brand over a 3 to 4 year period. And I've hopefully made them as practical as possible, because building a brand is a big, scary thing, actually. And it's a thing that takes a lot of time. And I wanted to make this as practical as possible. So these 6 lessons are my takeaway as to what ultimately has turned Yoco from a very small brand fighting against absolute giants in the financial services sector to a brand that is competing at a pretty decent level footing. And really, this is a company that remains a company that is very small. We have less than 500 employees. Our budgets are an absolute fraction of a traditional bank budget. Yet we play within this world. And we have managed to shift our awareness and consideration levels from literally being a completely unknown brand, except for Cape Town CBD, to being a brand that, if you walk the streets of South Africa, 8 out of 10 of our target markets will have heard of us. And that has taken 4 years, which is actually a very short time from a brand standpoint. So let's get into these 6 lessons, which I've learned along the way, and which will hopefully help any of you in a practical way. The first and perhaps most important, these aren't in some kind of hierarchy, but this is a very important one, is you have got to know your why. You cannot build a brand unless you know what your purpose is. And unless that purpose is well articulated and it's baked into your product. Otherwise, you are just talking marketing. And your products and your brand promise have to come together. And they have to be intricately linked to a problem that you're solving. If you do not know your why, you cannot build a brand. It's as simple as that. And we learned early on that disconnecting product from brand promise is a huge mistake. It results in poor customer experience, mismanaged expectations, and this is something which has to be avoided from day one of building any kind of business. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to show you video material because, well, I'm a marketer, and that's how we get our message across. This is an example of a video that we produced when we relaunched our brand, when we changed our entire brand system. New colors, new logo, new identity, new tone of voice, a new icon set, the whole shebang, which, by the way, is fully available for anyone to look at brand.yoco.com. We've made it all available for anyone to go and look at. And this video just it talks to our why, because we connected our brand upgrade or refresh to our why as well. And our why is very simple. We are breaking down the barriers for small business owners. That's what we're doing. Every day we break down those barriers, and this is our promise that we bring to life across a number of pillars. And this is the little video that we launched when we refreshed our brand. By the way, everything you see today was done in-house. And that's something I want to talk about as well. We're a challenger brand. And we decided early on to build the capability in-house, creative capability. And yes, we do use incredible agencies every now and again when the job is just too big for us. But we decided to invest in brand, and we did it in-house, and we built a team. So the video animation, the creative direction, the copywriting, the design, all done in-house. And I think that's something which is important to understand, like how a small team of very focused individuals can build something fairly big. The second lesson for me is tell your customers stories. And this is true for no matter what your business is, to be honest with you. This is the Yoco brand strategy in one line. 80% is about our customers, 20% is about us. That's it. That's the rule. It's as simple as that. We don't use actors. We don't use stock imagery or stock footage. We use real, authentic customers in everything that we do. This guy you see in the slide right now is an amazing customer of ours in Melville and Joburg. That's him. That's in his store. This is his reality. It's his authentic lived reality. And his story is more compelling than any story we could tell about ourselves. So we decided early on that the hero of our story would be our customers. That's what captivating marketing is about. It isn't your brand, interestingly. And I think we have to be very, very real with ourselves that every product that has a strong brand is because their product is transformational in the lives of their customers somehow, or their service. And that make your customers the star. And that is what will get a goosebump and will get people to remember you, and will get that salience, which otherwise just gets lost. It also does not have to be hard or expensive. We tell one really solid video-based customer story a month, and that doesn't cost us tons of money. But we have to find them, and that's tricky nowadays because we have a lot of customers. So deciding whose story to tell becomes our biggest problem, which is an amazing problem to have. So I'm going to show you a brief video now about a guy called Langa and how our product has helped transform his life. I just get a thumbs up that you are getting sound on these videos, correct? Otherwise this would go down.
100%, Matt. Videos
okay,
are playing.
Great. Thanks, Angela.
May 5, 2010, I was dismissed at work. They didn't know that while they dismissed me, they opened another doors for the future. When I was driving through our villages, I see the people around the corner, they're doing nothing. So I realized that as an entrepreneur and a business person, I have to open the shop. For me, a tuck shop is just like a four-way stop, whereby every interaction comes together. People in my community, they come together, they share their opinions. Some of them, they come and buy some drinks and they sit together, they share ideas, and then they share the love they have for each other. For the first time I bought the Yoco machine, some of them didn't believe this thing is working. In the villages, we can swipe, like in town. They tap their cards and then they go. Technology with the Yoco, it was very awesome because it's saving the taxi fares for my customers. Because of Yoco Advance, I'm able to renovate my shop, I can order more stock, I can develop my business and going forward further. When I went to the dealership, they gave me a car without a deposit. So I asked myself why. They said, you've got a lot of transaction. We see the Yoco transaction here. So you qualify, so you can take a bakkie to your business. What fuels me is that I have a love of what I'm doing. I'm planting love to other people and also respect. So the tuck shop, I think it's a family combiner and a friends combiner, like a four-way stop whereby we come and stop and we're celebrating the life. What you plant, you sow one day. So if you invest now, you invest for the future. Maybe 3 years, 4 years to come, you will celebrate the fruits of your investment.
The third one, the third lesson is quite similar to the second and the first in some sense, and that is the importance of real authenticity. I think that the reality is that people are exposed to on average 3,000 marketing messages a day. And the only way you break the curve of indifference, everyone will be indifferent towards your marketing message, is to do it in a way that stops people in their tracks. And I think, interestingly, if you look like everyone else and your message is the same as everyone else and you sound like everyone else, you're simply going to blur into the background. So particularly nowadays, being real and being authentic, I believe, is a differentiator. This lesson is perhaps not as relevant to every business or service in South Africa, but it was very relevant to us. And it's one of the key things that helped us build this brand, which is just the vast importance of authenticity. What is relevant, though, is that in every category, there is a sea of sameness. Everything looks the same. And marketers talk about, is it against the category norm? Well, I think you should be doing stuff against the category norm. Because if you're in the category norm, you are literally going to get lost in the space of everything else that happens around you. I'm not dissing the banks or insurance companies within this slide. What I am showing, though, is that if you look across the board here, there is nothing which is different. The models are the same. The copy is the same. The way it's structured appears to be the same. This is a category norm for small business in South Africa. It tells, to be fair, an unreal story about small business. Small business in this country is hard. It is really hard. You spend enough time with your customers, it is not a kumbaya champagne popping thing. It is really a grind out there. And if this is what your marketing looks like, I can tell you for sure you're not speaking to your customers. And I think that for me is the key thing, is that no matter what you do, you can't have a bunch of marketers sitting in a room coming up with great creative ideas. They should be on the streets speaking to customers. We have absolute no tolerance approach to people that think that they can do their jobs from behind their desks 24/7. Getting in front of customers is what matters. And if you break the sea of sameness, if your pursuit is to be different to your category norms, you will stand out. And you just got to do that in a way which leaves people with something positive behind. So I'm going to show you now a piece of work. This is the last video you'll see, by the way. So the rest is less video heavy. A campaign that we launched last year, which was trying to really shine a light on the reality of small business in South Africa, but while still leaving plenty of hope. And it was called We the Underdog.
Everyone loves an underdog story. Until you're the underdog. The underdog does not surrender. This is the first lesson the underdog learns, and it owes its life to it. Blink, and it's game over. The underdog does not wait for opportunity to knock. Not welcome here or here. Locked outside, stuck at the back of the queue, priced down, stuck in the shadow of giants. Rejection's their motivation, criticism their endorsement. Masters of might, plight, and sleepless nights. The underdog chases hard when the head says no. Stubborn and resolute in the belief that it will be okay. Because they don't know about the nights you cried and prayed and did everything you could to not be the underdog anymore. Until then.
Of course, when we talk about We the Underdog, we're talking about ourselves as well. So it was a great ability to connect the vision and the purpose of Yoco and the business that we're in, and the fact that we're an underdog with our customers who are underdogs too. And that the one thing that differentiates us from the big dogs is that we understand them and we get them. The first is the vital importance of data. And I think that for me, marketing is a combination of wild swings and sure things. You have to take some pretty big bets and to take some pretty wild swings, but you need to use data to decide what you fuel. So creativity allows you to do things which can break through, but you usually need to fuel that breakthrough with some money. And we believe in a combination of magic and science. That's the job of a brand team or a head of brand or a brand marketer or someone or a small business owner who's trying to build their brand. You've got to combine the science with the magic. The magic is the creativity. The science is the data. If it moves, measure it, is what I say. So for us, it's a combination of what we call bonfires and fireworks. Fireworks are those big things that you want ready to blow up. Bonfires is you're always on little bits of content which are going on all the time. And I think many people believe that brand is the kind of thing that I guess you can't measure and it's really hard to know the effectiveness of. Yeah, that might be true. But our brand team has a dashboard which looks like this, and it's comprehensive. And we are constantly watching data to understand what we fuel and what we don't fuel, what we let go. And that doesn't mean you have to dumb down on creativity. You should be doing enough that you can fuel plenty of things that are out there. But if stuff launches and it doesn't do well, walk away from it, move on to the next thing. And that's the wild swings versus sure things idea. So data is just totally critical to know what you're doing is effective or not. Number 5, nurture a community. In some respects, that's exactly what iStore is doing with this. We actually have something called Yoco Meets as well. And for us, it is a live series of events similar to this where people get together and talk. And we were big on eventing for a long time. COVID has made that more complicated, I have to say. But what we did during COVID is we flipped from a community that's very event-driven community to advocates. And I'll talk about that in a second. But nurturing a community is totally vital. And I think that if you combine a online community through the likes of content and blog and social media with an offline community in the case of eventing, you can really build an army of advocates. And advocates are far more powerful than the big media budget, that's for sure. We track the amount of earned media and the amount of organic reach that we're getting every month. And that has consistently grown due to an army of advocates. We actually, during COVID, launched an advocate program where we engage a certain number of advocates, somewhere around 200 to 250 at the moment are active advocates who we incentivize to tell Yoco's story. We give them challenges, they're called acts of advocacy. They earn points for every act of advocacy. That points can be translated into Yoco merchandise, cash, small business vouchers to try and support our customers. And this advocacy platform has been critical for us because during COVID and even beyond, marketing media budgets were a fraction of what they were before then. And during COVID, for about a 6-month period, we literally switched the lights off. But we relied on advocates to keep us going and keep reach going and keep frequency going. So advocacy is wildly important. And I think if you don't have an army of advocates, either you're not nurturing one, something can be as simple as a newsletter community or a CRM base that you are regularly emailing or sending WhatsApps to, but nurturing, and those that are highly supportive, repeat purchases, people that speak about you should be incentivizing in my mind. You should be bringing them into a smaller pool and you should be creating something that's bespoke for them to say, hey, thank you for talking about me. I see what you're doing for me. Let me help you in return as well. And you can really get an advocate army going. And for us, this has been very important for growing our brand over the past 5 years. And then for me, number 6, and really the last lesson before I think we move into some more Q&A style content is the importance of creativity. I think this is the single reason, strong strategy, strong purpose, investment in creativity, which has made the Yoco brand famous. And there's a fantastic quote by the guys at BBH Labs, which is, our objective is effectiveness, our strategy, creativity. And for me, it's about this idea of 80% is the idea, and then 80% is the execution. And the people that are good at the idea are often not good at the execution. So you do need to have a multifaceted team building your brand, or you need to be able to wear a lot of hats, like idea hat and execution hat, because they are quite different to each other. And, the people behind the brand, in the case of Yoco, is a pretty diverse, cross age, gender, race, country, every part of the country group of people. And, this is not a small team. This team is slightly smaller nowadays. Actually, this is a slightly older slide, but you can get a sense of the people behind a brand like Yoco. And the reason why it works is because you have a lot of left brain and a lot of right brain people in the room. You have enough people from enough diverse backgrounds to challenge each other and to make sure that the work that we do is there's real single-minded genius in the idea, as opposed to something which is too niche on one side. And people that aren't scared to be quite brave as well. So this gives you a sense of the kind of people that live behind a brand like Yoco. Although Yoco is a brand that's been built by all 500 people that are in the business, and a customer success consultant who answers the phone when people have a problem is as much of a brand builder as, for example, someone who is a principal designer in the brand team. Similarly, our inbound sales teams, people that are on the phone, anyone that's frontline servicing staff and servicing customers are your real internal brand advocates, and they are vital to make sure that you live up to your brand experience and your brand promise. So this gives you a sense of the kind of people that live behind the building of a brand. It's not a small investment. I think that we made a decision 3 years ago to separate brand marketing from performance marketing. Brand marketing, own awareness, own top of funnel, own that audience building metrics, own organic sharing, organic reach. Performance marketing, middle of the funnel and bottom of the funnel remarketing. They are drilling the numbers every single day. They are optimizing, they're efficient. The two have to talk to each other. But you can't ask people who are building a brand for the long term to be obsessing about your customer acquisition cost through Facebook ad sets yesterday. It doesn't work. It's a fundamentally different mindset and frame of mind. If you do not separate your teams, you will never build a brand, is my belief. And for the first 3 years of Yoco, we combined them. It wasn't working. We separated them. We started getting real traction. Long range effectiveness versus short range efficiency. Two totally different mindsets, ways of working, etc. I now look after both of these teams and I'm stitching them together. But the teams that live there are doing a very separate job and are completely different set of KPIs. And I think you've got to separate if you want to do well. Then maybe my last point here is just breathe. No, this takes time. Building a brand it's not an overnight thing. It takes years to get traction. And if you set up your KPIs incorrectly, and if you are looking for return on your brand investment within the first 12 months, you're going to stop. Because you're going to look at the numbers and be like, well, that's not working. But I can tell you that you'll be paid back 10x if you keep persevering in year 2 and year 3 and get freshly consistent all the way through, and give people something to really love your brand for. So it doesn't matter what your competitors do, what your pricing strategy is. You've got a moat, and that moat is your brand. And getting through that moat, anyone else in the category, it's extremely hard. But you've got to build the moat. And the moat takes time to build. So yeah, you got to breathe. And that's it for me. You can grab me on Twitter and you can grab me on LinkedIn. The other social media platforms are for my family. So don't try to grab me there.
Matt, thank you so much. That was fascinating. I actually loved your point number 6, because it's something that so many businesses grapple with. It's this inability to be able to delineate between brand and the immediate, sales targets, requirements that come together. And often they get so confused, or companies focus rather on let's meet the numbers in terms of targets, etc. What would you advise? I mean, a small business that's got limited budget, how do you even justify, thinking about brand or focusing on brand? And what are some of the practical things you'd advise to them?
Look, it's the ultimate differentiator. So I think that the reality of performance marketing is that any performance marketing tactic is replicatable. That's how the algorithms work, And we have learned over many years that there's a direct correlation between media spend and sales on performance marketing. It's quite frankly direct. And the platforms, because there are so few platforms that really deliver good digital ad experience, these platforms are absolutely optimized to make money for themselves, and therefore getting organic reach and organic sharing is stuff extremely hard nowadays. And if you go to offline media, outdoor radio, TV, etc., like you'll reach the mass, but it's hell of expensive. So building a brand is slower, but ultimately the thing that allows you to separate direct media to sales. Like it breaks that funnel, and brand is one of the most important flywheels, And for us, the brand allows us to increase our active merchants, which who are active customers, then mean that there's a small group of consumers who pay at one of our devices. That drives word of mouth and virality, and a small portion of those consumers are business owners themselves, and they'll pay on a Yoco device and then will become aware of Yoco as well. So there's just a flywheel that happens with brand that's a little bit different, and it just separates your media spend out. So how do you practically do that? There's a couple of ways, because performance marketing from a tactic standpoint, there's relatively simple playbooks, to be honest. I would look to outsource the performance marketing elements if I needed to. I would get a little set of freelancers who are good at SEO, good at PPC, good at your Facebook and Instagram marketing, whatever platforms you choose, and get them to just optimize against the media budget and to be very driven by KPIs. And then as the owner of the business, or if I could afford to hire one person, I would bring an in-house person to look after your brand, because they need to understand your product super well. They need to be obsessed with building a community, obsessed with building creativity. And I would separate those two things like that.
Brilliant. Matt, I want to bring in another question, and then I'm going to actually bring you into the conversation, Michelle. But one of the things that I realized is you're punching way above your weight, right? You've been able to stand up against major brands. Your advertisements, the video that you showed, the first one is provocative. It plays on words. It's quite playful, but it's also quite brave. Was that always the posture from the start, or was it something that you guys developed over time?
Yeah, it's a great question. The answer is no. Actually, bravery comes with confidence, I think. And, as someone who started the brand team, I initially was pretty risk averse. I guess there's an inherent thing of, well, you don't want to mess this up, right? They're onto a good thing. Like what you could do is really mess it up. The confidence came when we started realizing that the more authentic and brave we were, the better people responded, the better our customers responded to our work. And a lot can be gathered by pretty simple customer feedback. Like before you release something, take it to 10 of your customers, show it to them, see how they respond to it, and take their feedback on board. That can be dangerous too, because it can give you a lot of false negatives or false positives. But like if you understand like how to do a bit of customer research, you can really learn a lot from it. And we, through the process of talking to our customers and showing them our work, realized that there was a really big open space with being bolder, and we wanted to be bolder, and we wanted to starting to provoke. It wasn't some kind of strange tactic to get, kind of earned media. Earned media. No, not at all. It was actually based on what our customers were telling us.
Wow. Let me bring Brett into the conversation.
Matt, thanks. I'm a co-host this afternoon, so I'm going to take advantage and just ask one or two questions as well. So I've actually got two questions for you. Recently, Yoco went through a rebrand. Right up front, you spoke about kind of, having a why, having a purpose when you brand. So when you rebranded, did you adjust your purpose? That's my first question, and the reasons for that rebrand. But the second question is, this is becoming a very competitive market. The big financial institutions are bringing in their mobile payment devices, etc. It's all about the strength of the brand right now. to sustain market share, etc. So just some thoughts and comments around that, if you can.
Yeah, sure. Yes, to answer your first question, the rebrand was not linked to a change in purpose. Actually, it was changed to a bit of a honing in of what that purpose was really about. But the core essence of the rebrand was that we looked at ourselves and we asked our customers again. We did a lot of research on this, and what they thought of our brand system and our color palettes and our logo, etc. And there was a lot of indifference to it, and a lot of feeling that it didn't reflect them. They couldn't see themselves in our brand. Actually, it felt like we were starting to separate ourselves out from our customers quite significantly, and that's something that we're obsessed with stopping. Like, you can't, as soon as we feel like we're corporatizing or doing something which feels like we're creating a gap between ourselves and our customers, like we are allergic to that. So there was a real impetus post-COVID in particular, where it felt like we'd had this, things were so tough. For us, it was tough. I mean, we are ultimately, our revenue is a direct correlation to our customers' revenue. If our customers' revenue goes down, our revenue goes down. It's as simple as that. During COVID, in the hard lockdown, we lost 95% of our revenue overnight, gone. And by then there was a team of 250 of us looking at each other saying, well, okay, the small business lights are out, our lights are out. Quite literally, there's nothing we could do. We had to do horrible retrenchments. We had to really slim down the team. And we came out of that feeling very much like more linked than ever before to our customers, because we were like, wow, we've gone through the ringer together. Like, that was incredibly tough. And I mean, it still is, by the way, post. It's not like it's actually that much easier now. It's still a lot of toughness out there. And we felt like we wanted to look and feel more like them. And that was the genesis. Our purpose was always break down barriers, actually. But like, we'd kind of moved away from it and how we looked. And then your second question was, what are we doing about, what's happening in the category? I mean, the category is, when you become the market leader like this, you get a target on your back. And I think, we took a niche and we've turned it into something which is now quite aspirational for a number of banks in particular. And I think for us, in some senses, this is a positive thing for the ecosystem, actually. And ultimately, competition is good here. And ultimately, we therefore, quite honestly, it's good for small business. And that's good. That's good for us in the end. I think that if small business doesn't succeed in South Africa, we're in a lot of trouble. We need this sector to succeed. And therefore, the investment that's going into it from any financial player, financial services, fintech, the whole shebang, can only be positive for the sector, and totally down with it. We will always be customer obsessed. And I think that's something which is a bank is going to hard to compete with us with, our customer obsession and our closeness to our customer and the way that we build our products and the way that we do our marketing. There's something unique there in how we built, which is pretty hard to replicate. But if it's good for them in the end, it's going to be good for us.
Brilliant. Thanks, Matt. Let me bring in Michelle. Michelle, do you want to come into the conversation? I think you've had your hand up and you've got a few questions. There you go. Now you're on, Michelle. You just need to unmute.
Unmute.
Hi, can you hear me? We can hear you.
Fantastic. Hi, Matt.
Hey.
Thank you very much for this discussion, the meeting. I've been out of the marketing game for a very long time and have come in and launched a product. So obviously social media has taken off exponentially, and I'm kind of like still trying to run while I'm only at crawl stage. So you're talking about influencers or freelancers. Where would you look, or where would someone look at someone for a freelancer? Who would you recommend? Is there somewhere that you can go to where you can find somebody who specializes in this that isn't astronomical for a small setup?
There isn't a magic place for me to send you, Michelle. I suppose that's where I'd like to start. It's quite hard, actually, because I have always relied on connections and community. What I do have is some people that might be able to help you. So I'm very happy to, on the side, to message you and to give you some ideas of individuals. There are some platforms that you can go onto where you can like grab freelancers relatively quickly. The problem is that I wouldn't even direct you there because I can't say that I've done that, and therefore I can't promise that you'll find good people. But I do have some pretty decent people in my back pocket who are all what I would consider guns for hire, who will happily do work, if particularly for the right product, if you have that. So we can chat on the side if you want.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Sure.
Matt, I'm going to bring in two last questions and really important aspects. So I think what has happened, and you've alluded to this, is the fact that the space has become competitive, the landscape has become competitive, but also the very essence in terms of fight for eyeballs, fight for share of wallet, fight for share of throat has become overly competitive, that consumers are inundated with a fire hose of information coming through. I think what you guys have done particularly well is to be quite clear that we focus on customer, that obsession with the customer, and then to build the marketing and the brand around the customer with a very clear identity and intent, and then to do it in a way that's differentiated. Do you think these are the key ingredients, or what else do you think would be important? Somebody who's in a competitive space to just make sure that what we do stands out with the limited budget that I might have.
Yeah, look, I think everything that you've described is correct, in the sense that I think those are the key ingredients, and those were the key ingredients, and they still continue to be. I think the one thing for me that is perhaps a useful, practical thing for people is there's a fantastic concept of being a challenger brand, and there's some great books that have been written about it by a guy called Adam Morgan, one called Eat the Big Fish, which is really about how if you have ambitions up here, but resources down here, how you close that gap. And This is what the challenger mindset's all about. It's about, and they boil it down to a set of what they call sort of credos, things that you can do. But in the end, it does come down to this mindset of really doing more with less, actually, and how that does require, really good creativity, like really good focus, like seeing anything as an opportunity for media. Media is everything from your packaging to when people phone into you, when they engage with you, like there is a media and an experience opportunity everywhere you go. And just making sure that you're like incredibly foundationally focused on solving the right problems for your customer. But I would recommend people, there's a website called the Challenger Project, which really sums up a lot of this as well. It's a great mindset for any small business owner to have. And we adopted it early on. Like, we're going to be a challenger brand. We know we just don't have the money to tackle the big guys here. So we're going to really think like a challenger at every step of the way. And, this concept of beautiful constraints, which is another book that Adam wrote, actually, like if your constraints, a constraint can be hugely empowering. So, in actual fact, a small budget is 10x more powerful to drive creativity than a big budget. Yeah. And if that's your frame of reference, it's not like, oh, I don't have the money to take these guys on. It's, oh my God, I've got such a small budget. Geez, I better think really smartly about how to use it and how I'm going to break through with this money. It really drives creativity. There was an amazing study done where kids at a play park, it was discovered that if you fenced in the play park, they use more of the space, which is just a fascinating psychological thing, right? So if you create a fence around things, people will go all the way to the edges because they'll try and find ways to use the space. It's the same with money. If you create too big a budget, and we've fallen into this trap even in the last year or so as we got more money, and it's like we actually started doing less and less engaging breakthrough work because we got lazy. Whereas now we're saying like, we got to think like a challenger brand. And that's been our mantra from day one. So I think anyone can think like that. And those are useful places to go and check out that whole mindset.
Excellent. Lovely. Matt, let me end with the following. What's the coolest thing you've done at Yoco?
The coolest thing I've done at Yoco. That's an interesting question. Damn. I think actually, what was really amazing, which we did, which during COVID, during that lockdown, we tweeted a graph about how the small business turnover, according to our data, had dropped by 90% during a hard lockdown, and it got retweeted hundreds and hundreds of times. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. What if we actually take all of our data and we anonymize it, and we create a tracker of small business health? We called it the Small Business Recovery Monitor, actually. And this data updated every single day, and you could dig into by geography, by industry, how small business was doing. And it's actually still available on our blog, Small Business Recovery Monitor, it's called. And you could literally watch the South African small business sector coming back alive again as the lockdowns eased. And then you could watch, like, as Omicron happened, boom, it went back again, and it came back again. It's just a fascinating insight into a sector that we know so little about. You know, if you ask 10 people in a room, what is the value of the small business sector in terms of GDP and job creation, you'll get 10 different answers
100%.
Because everyone has a different definition of what is small business, what's medium, what's micro. Everyone, by the way, I think it's just wildly underserviced from a government perspective, wildly underserviced. Like, you know, we have the business confidence index, which is all big business. Yeah. So, you know, once again, like, we just don't have enough data points to say, like, well, how's the sector actually doing? We have very few that are live data points. So the fact that we can provide that data live, and government started using it to make decision making. And even when the floods and the riots happened in KZN, Treasury came to us and said, hey guys, what's going on? And how can you help us potentially disperse money? So we have an insight into the sector now, which is very valuable. And we're not monetizing it. It's not interesting. It's completely free for anyone to go onto. But I think it's something that has driven interesting decision making recently. And I'm proud that we managed to do that.
Lovely. Fantastic example to end with. Let me bring this together, Matt, by thanking you for really sharing so openly, so honestly, for giving us the journey and the steps that you've been on. And I think for us, and I want to read some of the really cool comments that have come through, right? It's, well done on the Yoco story, Matt. It's simple, it's authentic, it's clear, and it's refreshing. From Chad. Bongekile, what I take from this is that building a brand is slow and I need to give myself time to breathe. Thank you for such an amazing and inspiring story. And as Brett has said, a very inspirational one. And for me, I take a few fundamental things. I think the importance in terms of differentiation. We often hear about the VUCA world, the world of volatility and uncertainty. But as we hear, you've got to flip the VUCA and talk about velocity and unorthodoxy. And you guys have been unorthodox, and you've done it at a speed. Let's be honest. If you started with a few years ago, it's not been a long journey like some of your traditional competitors. I think the second one is the importance of challenger brands and being able to utilize the skills, the resources, the availability, and the capabilities in-house to be able to develop. The third one, which really resonated with me, is this ability to focus on brand, because we too often ignore brand and we focus on the immediate day-to-day marketing components. The fourth one is COVID was tough. It was tough on small businesses and tough, as you can see, in terms of the quantitative numbers that have come through. And thankfully, some of it is starting to come through that brings it in. And then finally, really, I think you guys continue to push the envelope. It's great to see a payment company doing such clever, such creative marketing, brand positioning, messaging, and as I hear now, even such significant work in terms of insight and analysis that goes out. So thank you so much, Matt, for your time, for your input. And let me hand back to the iStore Meets team.